Morning. It is Monday, October 24th, 2022, and this is DC Signal to Noise. Since we last talked, China completed its once every 5 year Communist Party Congress. Several polls have been taken, and it looks like Republican House candidates, at least the House candidates, are gaining momentum. Congress adjourned and is still on recess. The Cyclones have still not won a Big 12 football game. And the Phillies and the Astros won their league championships and will meet in the 2022 World Series starting on Friday. And maybe the best news out of all of that is Election Day. 2022 is just a short 15 days away. Pro Farmer Policy Analyst Jim Wiesemeyer. Good morning, Jim. How are you?
Good morning. And a shout out to all the people who came up to me, Chip. You need to hear this too, that they say that they like what we do. Keep it up. And that was in San Antonio at CEPA's conference and at a farm credit insurance conference in Austin, Texas.
Excellent. Excellent. All right. Welcome to you all. Glad that you are joining us this morning. I'm AgriTalk host Chip Flory. If you would like to be part of the conversation this morning, find the comments tab on your screen. Click on that. It will open a dialogue box and send us your thoughts, send us your questions, and we will try to have an answer for you by the end of the conversation here this morning. You've been traveling some, Jim.
Yes.
Early last week and late last week. What did you learn?
Well, I learned that cotton, I was in cotton country for sure. You're going to have fewer acres next year. I'll tell you that. So that might mean a bull market, Chip, if we have any problems with cotton that is planted. One. Two is a lot of questions on a farm bill. Will we have one? The consensus among the congressional staffers at some of the meetings I attended was mixed, but primarily most of them think there's going to be a 1 or 2 year extension. Lots of questions on the emergency relief program. Some concern, Chip, because how many years do you have an ad hoc disaster program before it's no longer ad hoc? And if we go into a permanent ag disaster program, the concern is that that could really merge into the current existing private federal government crop insurance program, and that would not be a good situation.
Yeah. Jim, is so much of the conversation about what this next farm bill is going to look like and what is going to be the main topic of conversation to this point has been on the conservation title because of everything, the climate smart farming projects that have been launched by USDA using Commodity Credit Corporation funding. I'm hearing more and more about, listen, no, we need to keep the focus on Title I and that safety net. You're picking that up?
Oh, absolutely. The commodity groups, the farmers, basically they're saying the Title I needs substantial reform. And most of them indicate indexing reference prices and loan rates to make it more palatable, Chip. And the concern is where the money would come from. But I'll tell you, with the food's so important right now from a national security perspective. I tell the audience that, don't give up on getting more funding, and especially because the spread between food and nutrition funding in a farm bill, which is like over 1.1 trillion, $1 billion. Where's a trillion?
You about made me spit coffee right there.
It's trillion.
Oh my goodness.
And much less for the Title I program. So you can see the concern here that the Title I is really losing clout.
Yeah. Could Title I be reformed? Because to me, reformed means a new style of safety net, or is it just going to be updated to reflect, Jim, I think it was 1988 Farm Bill
when they when they changed. Yeah, I would say updating, Chip, to make it reflect the current, I hate to say current cost of production, because we've tried that one, and the question there is whose cost of production, and you get into a minefield there.
Yeah,
but
it was probably the first farm bill in the 90s when you said to me, Chip, keep in mind, a farm bill is a snapshot of the current farm economy conditions, and they write a bill to fit those conditions. If we do that in 2023, it's probably going to mean a significant increase on those reference prices.
Absolutely. And indexed. Now, normally you got to shy away from indexing, but that's what some lawmakers and some commodity groups want, because otherwise this Title I is really getting watered down, Chip. And, we've talked in the past about pumping up the Commodity Credit Corporation from 30 billion maximum to 50 billion or 60 billion. But boy, I'm getting some pushback on that, because unless the use of that is specifically prescribed in legislation, that gives the USDA secretary wide latitude in how to use that funding. So farmers and others say, that depends on who the ag secretary is, because they could have their favorite programs.
Interesting. Okay. All right, boy, we're going to have a lot more discussions, many more discussions about the farm bill before we even start writing it. So stay tuned for those conversations. Jim's ideas and opinions are going to be evolving on that as we move forward. Okay, let's take a look at what has happened over the last week, and I'm going to save China for the weekend because it did wrap up over the weekend. But let's go over some of the things from last week. Ukraine says that Russia is delaying the passage of the grain ships, and that we're starting to build a queue again in the Black Sea of vessels hauling Ukrainian grain. This doesn't sound good.
No, and it's Putin flexing his muscles again on this one. He usually falls back in line for grains. He's just wants higher prices for his own wheat, Chip.
Okay. This comment from Treasury Secretary Yellen has got me more than a little bit concerned based on her track record. And it's maybe not as bad as some of the other Fed governors out there, or Fed chairman. But when she says that inflation is not embedded, it makes me think that inflation is embedded.
Yeah, her track record as a Treasury Secretary is not good, Chip.
Right,
and
right.
Boy, I've been traveling now a lot, and I'd have to say it's embedded. And that should fear the Fed is fearing that, because even though U.S. equity markets shot higher on Friday, when the Wall Street Journal, which is almost a mouthpiece for the Fed's thinking, by the way, they've got a good leak there, that we'll have a 75 basis point hike on November 1 and 2 FOMC meeting, but then possibly they would ratchet it down to 50 basis points in December. That is not a pivot. So I don't know why the market got so excited. The pivot is when the Fed stops raising and then starts to lower, and we're a ways from that. Plus, they've got their book to have to deal with, Chip. So I think we're getting way ahead of ourselves there.
Right. Okay. What is this about the EPA and the Green Bank? The Environmental Protection Agency on Friday began the process of designing a $27 billion green bank that will offer grants to disadvantaged communities around the United States.
That's their social justice ideas. And see, there's your flexibility. Once Congress does not specifically prescribe a certain use of the fundings provided, and what was it? It was over $300 billion for climate.
It's hard to spend that much money.
It is, as they're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. It's unbelievable.
It's just their social justice area.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We talked on Friday with Tyson Redpath from the Russell Group about the $800 million in debt relief for disadvantaged farmers. Now, the definition is much more broad than it was earlier for this program. But this is an equity issue, isn't it?
Well, you got to be careful here. It is, and you should see the emails I'm getting from farmers on this one, Chip, especially the ones who's had to sell off some of their property to make their bills that aren't in arrears. You know, so this gets into emotion, and I feel for those farmers writing me, and I've thrown their comments to the USDA personnel. It's almost you're better off with you're in arrears.
And when you say that, it flashes me back to the early 80s. If you were in arrears and upside down on a farm loan, the bank and the farm credit system worked with you because they couldn't get anything out of you.
Yes.
That was the bottom line. If you were making payments, if you were up to date on your payments and you had equity in your farm, those are the guys that got foreclosed on because the banks could get something out of that operation.
Yes.
This is very concerning.
Yeah, well, these are areas that we don't have much history at USDA doing, and I think it's showing, Chip. And this could get worse next year. I was talking to down in San Antonio, Dr. Joe Outlaw, Texas A&M.
Oh yeah,
one of the best the best professor, I think, in agriculture and the land grant system. And I asked him, I said, Joe, Texas A&M did a study. Were we going to be as bad off as the Depression was in the 80s? And of course, initially the report said no, but he said these payments, the Trump payments and now the other payments that we've seen under the Biden administration, they're ending, Chip. Mm-hmm. And so that puts more weight on what we call the open market, which can be kind of rough. And so he is concerned about 2023 from a farm income and cash flow perspective.
Okay. Tanner just sent us a message. I think this is interesting. He said, heard an interesting take this last week. Quote, we do not have a labor issue. We have an issue with businesses not paying what the market demands, being hyper-focused on the demand side of the inflation talk. Why do we not draw attention to the supply side output and carve policy around that? Is anyone attempting to push broad-based policy that incentivizes production and disincentivizes the retention of capital?
Well,
production incentives have always been in place.
Yeah, and you've got it's your business taxes are there,
right,
for that,
right. And if I'm looking for any incentive on the production side of things, I'm not looking to the government for it. I'm looking to the market for it. And there's plenty of incentive coming from the market to produce every freaking bushel that you can grow, not only in 2022, but in 2023.
But we do have a physical labor shortage problem because many agribusiness executives tell me that they're focusing on retaining the associates they currently have, let alone having a hard time finding new ones. And they have significantly raised not only the remuneration in payments, but also the benefits. And they're still found wanting. And, this immigration issue, Chip, we're way behind in legal immigration. And the ag sector really counted on that. So that's another conundrum in this whole issue. Bottom line, at least this administration is not giving production incentives, in the crude oil industry. If they were, we wouldn't be in this.
Right, that's right.
In this energy situation. So I hear what you're saying.
Great point.
I think it's a system of the need for actual labor, people.
All right, good points. Okay. And speaking of the border issue, a record 2.4 million migrants illegally crossed the southwest border in fiscal year 2022, almost 4 million total under President Biden now. So
enough said. And our border is open, and it's not secure, as some of the top people in the Biden administration say. It's hard. It's hard to give speeches when you have to say the administration is lying, Chip, but I have to.
Well, at least you could talk about, that the deficit is down $1.4 trillion year on year. You can, I mean, that's got to be some good news, isn't it?
Yeah, at the end of the COVID payments, primarily, it's going to back up. Yeah, I want to get to this China question that Gary's asking.
Okay, Xi tightens his grip on China leadership, and I think it was right at the end of the Congress. Here's the question from Gary. What are we supposed to take away from the disturbing video of former President Hu being escorted away from, I believe it was the final meeting of the Communist Congress?
And it was near the end. Yeah, it was. Usually you don't have any drama like that, Gary, in a party Congress. It's choreographed, let me tell you. But now the later on, the Chinese press said he was sick and they were taking him out. I just don't believe that, because
he didn't look like he was sick to me.
No, they had to pull him up by the arm, and then he tried to get a paper or something at Xi's desk, and Xi wanted no part of that. It's disconcerting. And bottom line,
seems like there may have been a statement coming.
Yeah, could have been. Yeah. And we're going to have a special report on this in Pro Farmer Newsletter this week. But bottom line, Chip, the markets are speaking right now. They're seeing a very aggressive Xi coming out of this. He got all of his party loyalists to him. That's party is him now. Mm-hmm. And so that's affecting the marketplace. And it's going to get into trade relations, economic relations with the U.S. and other Western countries. He's speaking that the rise of the East and the decline of the West, and this was not a good party Congress for those outside of China.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Early last week there was some economic data. The release was delayed in China, and the assumption was because the data wasn't strong enough to fit the narrative of what was going on at the Congress. But in reality, the trade surplus came in stronger than expected. I think the GDP came in stronger than expected.
Yes.
But could have been a little bit of massaging to those numbers too before they were released.
It could have been. They released them Sunday night.
Right.
At least I think they were supposed to be released on the 18th. So, yeah, he wanted no part of that while the party Congress was going on. And
let's stay in Asia.
They're probably lower because he's going to continue his zero COVID policy. Yeah. So that's why their GDP is going to be shaky until they move off of that zero COVID policy.
More and more people are advancing the theory that the zero COVID policy and the rolling shutdowns of regions, yeah, there may be some COVID connections to it, but it's really China's way of rationing food. Have you heard much?
No, but I'll ask our China watchers that.
Okay, excellent. Okay. Also over the weekend, let's stay in Asia for right now. The tensions between North and South Korea, this is as high as I can recall it for quite some time.
Well, he keeps firing, Kim from North Korea keeps firing more and more powerful missiles over the area, including in Japan. So this just shows you the high anxiety in the world, and it's not limited to Ukraine and Russia whatsoever. And Iran's putting people in the Crimean area now, while at the same time, the Biden administration is trying to work a deal with them on nuclear energy. Figure that one out.
When it comes to energy, you can't figure a lot of this out right now, Jim. They say that there are dots to be connected on all of this, but they look pretty disjointed to me. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, that's another issue I heard from more than a few farmers, Chip, is the price of diesel. And we've got a problem with demand increasing, and it's going to increase more as we get into the winter. And then you've got diesel prices, flirting with $5.50, I guess. And only at or below a 20-day supply for inventory. So this is something we've said for months to watch out. When it became fall, it's fall.
Right. Currently, the U.S. has just 106 million barrels of diesel and heating oil and commercial stocks. The last time inventories were that low in mid-October was 1951.
Yes.
1951 since stocks were this tight.
I was 3 years old.
We've got a few more households to warm. We've got a few more Walmarts to supply, grocery stores. This is
and
we've been talking for weeks, months about the trials and the potential suffering that we are going to see in European countries. This doesn't make me feel good about how things are going to feel here in the United States at all.
Well, especially in New England area that uses that.
Yeah.
They're significant heating oil, and of course we ship more than a small amount of diesel to Latin America and Europe. Right. So there's a conundrum again. What do you do from a geopolitical perspective if you're even contemplating throttling back exports? It's a dilemma.
Oh, it certainly is. Okay, another thing from over the weekend that we need to mention here quickly. Student loan forgiveness has been put on hold. Biden administration was set back by the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals on Friday. Blocked the ability to forgive the loan repayments.
Yeah, and the administration put out over the weekend, I think 22 million have already signed up. For that program, 22 million students, and more to come. So, and just think that would the deficit reduction would have been larger had we not had that program, Chip, because you're at what, $400 billion price tag on that some people say could be a lot more. A lot of money.
Listen. If there was fraud involved, and the colleges, some way duped these students out of these funds, that's one thing. I don't want to repay somebody's student loans for their bad decisions. Bottom line, right there. Yeah. I'll say it. I don't care. I just don't want to. I paid mine. I paid my wife's. I paid my daughters. I helped with my sons. I've done my share. I'm done.
Although the price college was a lot lower when I went to school, I still had to work.
Not based on earnings.
I still had to work 2 jobs to help my parents pay. Adam points out current government policy is disincentivizing production in a whole bunch of commodities, and that's I agree with you. I agree with you.
Right. Okay. Jim, War 2 next year. We got to take a look at the week ahead, right? Let's see. What have we got? Well, let's start with this. We're 15 days away from the election. Where do you see the momentum going?
Oh, the momentum is clearly, and even the mainstream press is saying it's going to the Republicans, not only in the House races, but some Senate races. You've got Arizona Masters out there with the governor. Is it Ricky Lake? Former broadcaster. I think she's helping the Republican candidate Masters against Kelly, the Democrat. So that could be a pickup there. You have the debate, I think, tomorrow in Georgia. No, I'm sorry, Fetterman. In Pennsylvania and Dr. Oz. So that will be curious. We've already had the debate in Georgia where
Walker
did a pretty good job. So that's it's now we're in the final stretch, but the polls are beginning to really gel here, for the Republican. And I know you had my good friend Dave Wasserman on last week, and he sent me a story he did today in the New York 17th district. He had a rating change. The Democratic Committee chairman Maloney is moving from lean Democrat to toss-up. So that's another indication of some late moves, Chip.
Yeah. Gary says earlier here, watch Michigan. It may turn red. Prop 3 will have a huge parent turnout.
And Prop 3 is what?
Yeah, Gary, hit us with the details on Prop 3. I'm not exactly sure what Prop 3 is. You know what? Let's go on to another topic, and I'll look that up here real quick for us. The Senate, is it really so tight as it's Democrats pick up one seat, House Republicans pick up one seat, and that's about as tight as it can be. Yeah.
Well, 50-50. It could be 50-50 again, depending when you go through. Now, Real Clear Politics, and I would tell the viewers and listeners, that's probably the best and safest one to monitor because they're an amalgamation of these polls. And right now, they're saying a Republican pickup of 3 seats, Chip. Okay. So 53. I would watch Real Clear Politics.
Okay, very good. Proposal 3, sponsored by the group Reproductive Freedom for All, would enshrine abortion rights into the state constitution.
Okay.
In Michigan, Jim. So,
well, the Supreme Court, the Republicans have had a hard time with this abortion issue. What they should say is the Supreme Court did not ban abortion; they just left it up to the states.
Yeah,
that's it. That's it. And this is Michigan may be going that way.
Yeah,
as it may be.
Well, but when you take a look at the polls, and you had some of the details in the issues that matter to the most likely voters in your report today, I didn't see abortion on the list.
Well, it's down. And then, of course, when you put the Democrats list versus both together, abortion is up there, Chip. But I'll tell you, a number of Democratic election advisors are telling the candidates in the Democratic Party, you have emphasized abortion too much.
Yeah.
And they're getting hit with the economy, inflation, jobs, the border issues, and of course, food inflation and crime. Crime, to me, is probably the biggest issues in some of these swing states. Look at the New York governor's race now, is very close. That tells you all you need to know. A liberal city like New York City is neck and neck between a Republican and a Democrat. Say no more.
Right. It's also close in Minnesota on the governor's race.
Walz is now behind slightly, and I had more than a few Minnesota people at these meetings last week, and they're saying that's for real. He could possibly be dethroned.
Wow. Okay. Take us over to the UK. What a mess.
Oh, you know, the former finance secretary that we would call, chancellor of the exchequer, is only 42 years old. He's going to win it.
Sunak?
Sunak, yeah.
Yeah.
42 years old. The youngest potential prime minister in over 200 years, Chip. But he's a solid guy from all my reading. But look at that. This will be the third prime minister for UK this year already. That's you talk about a mixed high anxiety for that country. Then you lose the fabric of the former queen.
Yeah,
I feel for Britain.
Yeah, are some in Britain saying, "Hey, we need to get back into the EU"?
I'm sorry.
Are some in Britain saying we need to get back into the EU? Some lawmakers.
There's always some, but no. The wide consensus is that they like where they're at.
Okay. All right. What else you got going this week, Jim?
Well, tomorrow I head to California to the National Renderers Conference, NARA. So it's out in California at a place I've never been. So I'm kind of looking.
My uncle Gene ran National Byproducts out of Clinton. All right. He was high up in the organization. I don't ever remember them making a trip to California for a meeting. I'm just saying, maybe times have changed a little bit in the last 30 years or so.
It's a good group, and I go through a lot because, of course, the meat and livestock sector and all that. So I can't wait to speak to him. I spoke to him this summer when they were in DC. Gary is telling us we'll read that bill or that amendment. Yeah. So we'll bone up on it because there's probably other things in there that caught people's attention.
Food prices are going to be a topic again tomorrow because USDA puts out another look at the food price inflation. So we need to be aware of that. And on the energy front, we get earnings throughout the week, including ExxonMobil, Shell, Total Energy, Chevron.
And you know what they're going to say? They're going to be very profitable. So within a nanosecond after they put out their earnings, the White House will point the finger saying, lower your prices.
Yep, that's exactly right. Oh, you forgot something. Lower them now. Now. Okay. We've also got some real quickly. We've got earnings from ADM this week too.
Yeah, it won't. Well, it depends on their margins and how they traded too. So there's always risk to reward in trading on that one. But I'll tell you, Chip, I want to come back and say this diesel thing is big time and an issue that's percolating. Remember the rail strike? That's been under
November 16 is the deadline there. So something that we have to watch very closely.
Absolutely.
Yep. All right. Today on Agri Talk, we've got Machinery Pete and NCGA CEO John Doggett. We're going to talk about the potential that Mexico is still looking at banning GMOs. So we're going to have to watch that very closely. So we've got the conversation with John Doggett this afternoon, 2:06 Central, Clayton Pope Commodities. We'll be on to talk about what's going on the markets. Guys, have a great week, everybody. Keep watching for those signals. Okay.